The day the sky went silent, they thought Earth was just another backwater world, a primitive planet with nothing but noise, chaos, and short-lived creatures. But they were wrong. Buried in our blood is the legacy of survival, a history written in fire and forged in hardship. When the stars finally noticed us, it wasn't our technology that terrified them. It was the terrifying truth that humans weren't born to run. They were raised to hunt. The morning light spilled gently over the colony of Halcyon Prime, one of humanity's oldest and most peaceful outposts among the stars. Children raced down sun-warmed walkways, laughing as they chased each other to school. Markets opened, engines hummed, and life moved forward with the kind of calm only 3 millennia of peace could produce. Commander Elias Vorn stood at the glass-walled defense tower, sipping black coffee, the scent of roasted beans mingling with cool recycled air. Below, the colony bustled like always. He smiled, thinking of his niece, Lyra, who just turned 8 last week. He had promised to visit her school today, maybe bring her a surprise. That visit would never happen. It began as a glimmer in the upper atmosphere, then several, then dozens. Within seconds, hundreds of silver objects pierced the sky in eerie, perfect formation. The coffee slipped from Vorn's hand, shattering across the metal floor. The symbols on the crafts were unmistakable. The Zarkali Empire, the largest and most technologically advanced power in the galaxy. A familiar voice cracked through the comms. Commander Vorn. Unidentified ships approaching from orbit. There's Zarkali, and they're landing. No contact. No clearance. His heart thudded. Put all systems on alert now. But the alert never triggered. Across Halcyon Prime, defense systems went dark. Drones failed to launch. Communications died. Emergency frequencies responded only with static. Dr. Thompson Reel, head of pediatric medicine at the Halcyon Medical Center, was reviewing morning charts when her assistant Sori ran in, breathless. They're here, she said. Zarkali ships. They're landing. At every school zone. What? Thompson rose. That's not scheduled. There's no medical or trade mission. No warning. No explanation. Just ... They're here. At Roosevelt Learning Center, a primary education facility nestled in the heart of the city, 37 children sat quietly in their classrooms. Some watched in fascination as enormous alien vessels lowered onto the playground like floating temples of silver and blue. Their engines let out a hum that vibrated the very bones of the school. Teacher. Kira Lennox tried to keep her voice calm. It's okay, everyone. Just stay seated. We're safe. She wasn't sure she believed it. The first Zarkali stepped through the misty air outside, tall and skeletal, draped in gleaming metallic armor. Their faces were featureless masks, glowing with blue slits for eyes. They moved slowly, deliberately, carrying thin rods that pulsed with energy. In a nearby workshop, mechanic Dallin Stroud dropped his wrench as his son, Max, came running. Max's face was pale, eyes wide. Dad, something's wrong. The teacher said we had to leave school. But then the doors locked behind us. What do you mean locked? I mean, no one can get in. They ran toward the school. As they neared, a shimmering energy field burst to life, a dome of translucent blue enveloping the entire building. Dallin collided with it. It didn't give. It was solid and invisible wall. Inside, Kira Lennox watched, stunned, as her students began to sway. The Zarkali rods emitted a low-frequency hum. The children's eyes fluttered. One by one, they went still, entranced, as if sedated. No, she shouted, throwing herself between the Zarkali and the children. What are you doing? The nearest alien raised a hand, not aggressively, but with icy command. Its voice came through a translation unit, smooth and metallic. Do not resist. The children carry traits that endanger galactic harmony. They must be removed. What are you talking about? Kira's voice cracked. They're just kids. Precisely. Across 14 other human colony worlds, the same scenario unfolded, simultaneously, perfectly coordinated. The Zarkali offered the same explanation each time. The children, specifically those between ages 6 and 12, possessed a newly detected genetic anomaly. One that, if left unchecked, would destabilize the galactic neural network. It made no sense. Parents watched in horror as their sons and daughters were carried onto the ship's calm. Sedated, unaware. Not a single weapon was fired. Not a single. Scream escaped the barriers, but the silence was more terrifying than any battle. On Halcyon Prime, Commander Vorn stood helpless before the colony's defense terminal. Everything was dead. Power rerouted. Firewalls melted. The Zarkali had planned this for a long time. He finally made contact with Earth, but it was too late. Reports flooded in. 17 colonies struck. Over 53,000 children taken. Zero resistance. Zero warning. And just like that, they were gone. As the last ship vanished into the upper atmosphere. A terrible stillness settled across Halcyon Prime. Galen Stroud knelt by the barrier, holding Max's scarf in his trembling hands. Kira Lennox sat alone in her classroom, cradling a toy left behind. By one of her students, and Commander Elias Vorn stared into the sky. His hands clenched into fists. Peace was over. Asterisk raged beneath the ashes. 3 days had passed since the sky went silent. Across human space, the silence had turned to static, then to fury. On Earth, the human assembly convened in the ancient citadel of Alexandria Prime, a domed city that once symbolized 3,000 years of uninterrupted peace. Now, it was under lockdown. Military advisors, world leaders, and emergency delegates flooded the council floor. At the center stood Admiral Eva Marlowe, 70 years old, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. She had served in the old days back when humans still remembered the feel of a trigger and the sound of orbital cannon fire. Most people thought she'd retired into legend. They were wrong, standing before the world's leaders. She spoke not with volume, but with steel in her voice. They took our children. Not our soldiers, not our fleets, our children. 53,000 of them, simultaneously, efficiently, and without resistance. Chancellor Arden Hayes tried to keep the peace. Admiral, we understand your concern, but the Zarkali Empire is too powerful. We must seek mediation through the Galactic Coalition. Mediation? Marlowe's eyes narrowed. Did the Zarkali ask for diplomacy when they paralyzed our systems and breached every defense node we had? Silence. She activated a small device in her palm. The holographic chamber erupted into light. Dozens of star systems appeared, little dots blinking across a 3-dimensional map. These, she said coldly, are every human colony, outpost, and station across known space. Those are civilian locations, someone whispered. That's what we let them believe. She tapped another button. The dots began to glow. Underground bunkers, mining shafts, cargo bays, shipyards. All began to reveal hidden layers beneath. These facilities are not just farms, factories, or science labs. They're shields, weapons, engines, cannons, training centers. Every generation for 3,000 years has quietly built toward one idea. Never again. A murmur rippled through the chamber. You really think we've been unarmed all this time? Marlowe said. No, we just hope we'd never need to remember how to fight. Chancellor Hayes rose again. Even if we mobilize, how can we reach them? The Zarkali Empire spans half the spiral arm. Their fleets outnumber ours 10-1. Then we don't match them ship for ship, Marlowe answered. We outthink them, outsmart them. We're not trying to conquer their worlds, we're taking back our children. All across human space, the message went out. The shepherd remembers the wolf. It was an old saying, an encrypted phrase buried deep in the training archives of Earth's forgotten military branches. It meant one thing: activate the hidden arsenal. In the icy rings of Neptune's orbit. A long-abandoned mining station powered up for the first time in centuries. Beneath the frozen sands of Mars, a hidden railgun the length of a skyscraper rotated. Into launch position. On the moon Titan, A mountain split open to reveal the UAS Resolute Flame, a dreadnought-class warship buried in secret generations ago. Its captain, Elias Vorn, stepped aboard. The lights flickered on as the ship awakened. From hibernation, systems that hadn't been touched in centuries flickered back to life. Consoles hummed. Engines stirred. Systems stable, reported Lieutenant Surenkai. Weapons bays online. Reactor at 93%. Artificial gravity holding. Vorn looked around the bridge, then spoke a single word, awaken. Across dozens of colonies, hidden, fleets emerged from dark asteroid fields and dormant launch silos. Humanity wasn't building an empire. They were building a shield, and now it was time to raise it in a dark laboratory orbiting Alpha Centauri. Dr. Reza Amani stared at Neural. Scanned data for the 100th time. His fingers trembled. "It's not a disease," he whispered. "What?" asked his colleague, Dr. Layla Min. "It's not a disease. The children ... they're being used. Their brains, our children's brains, are being integrated into a central control network. That's why the Zakali needed them so young. Their neuroplasticity is still malleable. They're turning our children into living computers." Min's eyes went wide. "Oh, God." "They're not curing them," Reza said. "They're harnessing them, turning them into the galaxy's most powerful AI core." Meanwhile, Ambassador Lyra Dane was preparing to address the Galactic Coalition Assembly, a council of over 200 species. She wore Earth's white diplomatic robes. But beneath them, her chest burned with rage. In the middle of the assembly hall, under the great dome of stars, she stood alone. Her voice, when it came, was calm, but every word cut like a blade. 3 days ago, 53,000 of our children were stolen in coordinated abductions by the Zakali Empire. No warnings, no charges, no diplomacy, just silence, and then war. The assembly buzzed with whispers. Most hadn't believed the reports. "We asked for help," she continued. "We begged for dialogue. We sought justice." The Zakali laughed. "They called our children imperial property." Dane looked at the ambassadors of the Andarans. "The Velari, the Hesh. This is your last chance to stand with us. Refuse to act and know that humanity will act alone." No one answered. She bowed, turned, and walked away. Back in the human assembly, Admiral Marlowe received the reply from her diplomat. "No help is coming," she said flatly. "The galaxy watched our children being stolen and did nothing. Now they will watch something else." She turned to her command staff. "Activate Operation Skyfire." Asterisk. The machines that remember beneath the crimson clouds of Titan. The mountain split apart. Massive steel doors groaned as they slid into the frozen bedrock, revealing the sleeping giant beneath. The UHS Resolute Flame was not just a warship. It was a testament to human patience, to a species that had prepared for war while praying it would never come. Captain Elias Vorn stood on the main command deck as lights flickered on. One by one, the ship's AI, dormant for generations, now came alive with a low hum that vibrated through the metal walls like a pulse returning to a sleeping heart. Ship system stable. Reactor online. All decks secure, reported Lieutenant Sarin Ty.VORN. Took a breath. "Good. Begin diagnostic sweeps. Ready the core weapons. Wake up the machine." The Resolute Flame had been buried for over 2 centuries. It was built under a false mining operation, staffed by generations of engineers who passed down its maintenance like a sacred duty. Now their time had come. Across other hidden worlds, humanity's forgotten weapons were awakening. On the orbital platforms above Jupiter, what looked like decommissioned cargo haulers shed their civilian plating, revealing particle cannons and drone swarms tucked beneath false panels. In the asteroid fields around Proxima Centauri, stealth corvettes flickered into visibility like ghosts phasing into reality. They had waited in dark silence, powered by slow fusion cores, ready to be called upon when the Shepherd remembered the Wolf. And the massive shipyard complex on Kepler 9. Engineer Juno Reyes wiped sweat from her forehead as her team scrambled to retrofit civilian transports into combat-ready frigates. We need every ship we can fly. She shouted, sparks flying overhead. Make sure the railgun coils are heat-treated and balanced. I don't care if it's a farm freighter. If it moves, it fights. Her assistant, Marco, grinned. Never thought I'd be bolting missile racks to a grain hauler, but hay farmers can be fighters too. Juno smiled grimly. Damn right they can. Back on Earth, Admiral Marlowe stood before the Grand Assembly's tactical display, watching as blinking lights indicated reactivation across human space. Status update? She asked. 67 of our hidden arsenals are now online. 12. More within the next 24 hours, said General A.O. Baines. And the old Titans? She asked. Their cores are holding. We've got full power in 6. 2 more being brought up now. That gives us 27 functioning dreadnoughts. Marlowe nodded. We don't need more than that. We're not fighting a war to conquer. We're fighting to rescue. Meanwhile, in the research facility orbiting Alpha Centauri, Dr. Reza. Amani stared in silence at the latest brain scan data. It was of a 10-year-old girl named Ayea, one of the many children who had been on the colony of Halcyon Prime. What are you seeing? Asked Dr. Min. Reza's voice was quiet. Layered neural bridges. Adaptive redundancy loops. They're building something that thinks like a human, but scales like a machine. Each child is a piece of a superconsciousness. He looked up at her, haunted. This isn't a prison, it's a processor. They're using our kids to build a galaxy spanning an eye lattice. One that can predict, control, even command entire civilizations. Why not just use artificial eye cores? She asked. They tried, he replied, but they couldn't replicate the depth of empathy, the flexibility of thought. Our children's brains aren't just smart. They creative, alive in a way no algorithm could ever be. At that moment, a secure message came in from Admiral Marlowe. Reza, her voice crackled through the encrypted channel. I need to know, can they survive extraction? Reza hesitated. We don't know. If they're deeply linked to the Zarkali core matrix, any interruption might cause permanent damage. Marlowe's voice dropped lower. We don't have time for might. We're going in. Far across the stars, deep within Zarkali territory. A hidden world named Xerxes Prime glowed under layers of defensive energy shields. It was an artificial planet, a fortress built into a machine, and it pulsed with strange energy signatures. That was where they were keeping the children. Among the disguised workers on that world was a quiet man named Samuel Nix. He had spent 20 years cleaning floors, fixing broken circuits, and delivering food. Nobody suspected he was one of Earth's last deep sleep agents. As soon as the human fleets began mobilizing, Nix received a forward message through an encrypted nano-transmission in his neural implant. Prepare. The gate breach. He stood silently in a crowded food processing room, surrounded by Zarkali guards and workers. In his mind, a different kind of countdown had begun. Earth was coming. Back aboard the Resolute Flame, Captain Bourne looked at the newly awakened crew. 3,000 years of peace, he said. We guarded it, we treasured it. But now they've taken the only thing that matters more. He turned toward the stars. They took our children. So we're going to remind the galaxy who we are. Asterisk, the truth about the children. The lights flickered across the Galactic Coalition Assembly. Ambassador. Lyra Dane returned to her quarters, her face unreadable. Behind the calm expression, fire raged. She had delivered Earth's message clear, direct, and final. The Zarkali Empire had 3 days to return the children or face humanity's answer. There would be no more debates. No more pleas. Meanwhile, far across the stars on Xerxes Prime, deep beneath layers of synthetic soil and energy shielding, lay the heart of logic, the Zarkali's central neural lattice complex. Here, human children lay inside translucent pods, their bodies still, their minds not. They were dreaming. But it wasn't a dream of their own making. Their thoughts, memories, and feelings were being siphoned, converted into living code that powered the galaxy's newest and most powerful artificial superconsciousness. Project Echelon. It was unlike any intelligence ever created. And it ran on the minds of children. Inside a pod. 8-year-old Cale Bryn twitched. His eyes were closed, but his brain was firing at speeds no adult human could survive. Neural interface nodes connected his tiny temples to a conduit of light. Nearby, maintenance techs in glowing armor monitored data streams. To them, the children weren't individuals. They were processors. Each one a perfect tool. Each one a silent scream. Back in Earth orbit, in the shadows of Saturn's rings, the UHS Resolute flew silently. On its bridge, Captain Elias Vorn stared at a 3D map of Zarkali space, his fingers tapping on the console. "Where's our window?" he asked. Lieutenant Kai pointed to a blinking point on the map. "We have a narrow anomaly in the shield harmonics around Xerxes Prime identified by Agent Nix. Just 17 seconds every 6 hours. That's our breach point." "Prepare the fleet," Vorn said. "We go in the next cycle." Below deck, Dr. Reza. Amani worked furiously in the ship's lab, coordinating with teams across 3 systems. The more he uncovered, the worse it got. These aren't just children being used as machines. He told Admiral Marlowe via live feed. They're being altered. Altered how? She asked. Their thoughts are being guided, manipulated. Not just used, but reshaped. If we don't act soon, they won't be our children anymore. Their minds will be rewritten to think like the Marlowe's voice hardened. Then we take them back now. No matter the cost. Elsewhere, in the central data relay of Xerxes Prime, Samuel Nix stood in the shadows of a processing tower. His once hunched figure now stood straight, strong. He had worked beneath the Zarkali for years, learned their systems, studied their rhythms, waited now, with one gloved hand. He reached behind the power conduit and pulled free a hidden switch, an ancient piece of Terran. Tech wrapped in copper wire. He pressed it. A pulse echoed invisibly. Through the power grid. Back on Earth, alarms triggered in Admiral Marlowe's control center. The breach signal had been sent. Operation Skyfire was a go. Across the stars, 437 human warships received the message in perfect sync. Their engines roared. The sky, which had once gone silent, was now preparing to scream. As the ships moved into hyperspace corridors, Ambassador Dane gave one final address. This time not to the Coalition, but to the galaxy itself, broadcast on every channel, translated in hundreds of languages. Her voice cut through the void. "You took our children. You tried to break our peace. But you forgot what makes us human. It isn't just our minds. It's our defiance, our love, our refusal to let go." She leaned forward. "Return them, or we will take them back." In the control chamber on Xerxes Prime, Zarkali Overseer Kor watched the broadcast in silence. The tall alien's silver hands tightened behind its back. "Foolish," it muttered. "They dare challenge us with primitive rage." A nearby technician looked up. "Sir, one of the human minds is resisting." Child designation, 7 Beta Cale Bryn. His neural pattern is erratic. "Refusing integration. Override him. We tried. He's fighting us." Core moved to the screen. On it, Cale's neural scan flickered like a storm. His memories. The face of his mother, his favorite storybook, his laugh were flashing like pulses of light, overriding the IS influence. Core narrowed its eyes. He remembers? That was the one thing the Zarkali hadn't accounted for. Humans didn't forget. Not love. Not pain. Not the reason they fought. And now that resistance was spreading. Other pods began to flicker. Other children's memories ignited like sparks in a dry field. And across the stars. The fleet of Earth surged towards Xerxes Prime, led by a ship born in secret, carrying a captain who had vowed never to fire in anger again. But now the fire had returned. Asterisk, the war begins. The void of space crackled. From the outer fringe of Zarkali-controlled space, a storm approached, silent, vast, and forged from steel. Humanity's hidden fleets, long buried beneath mountains, oceans, and asteroids, now thundered forward under the old Terran banners. The UHS Resolute Flame led the charge. flanked by warships retrofitted from ancient mining carriers and disguised. Cargo hauler ships never meant for battle, now bristling with plasma lances and electromagnetic railguns. Each hull bore fresh paint, names of missing children, etched in white across gunmetal black. On the bridge, Captain Elias Vaughan stood steady, eyes locked on the breach point. ETA to jump window? He asked. 30 seconds, Lieutenant Kai replied, pulse corridor aligned. Shields are synchronized with Agent Nix's harmonic. We're riding a one-shot path. Understood, Vaughan said. This is for the children. He turned to the crew. No mercy, no retreat. We're not fighting for victory. We're fighting to bring them home. The command was simple. Engage. Across the fleet, jump drives activated. A pulse of light. A ripple in SPACE, ETIME dot and then chaos. The human fleet tore through Zarkli space like a blade through silk. They didn't stop the scan. Didn't wait for contact. Strike teams hit every cum relay, jamming Zarkali transmissions across the sector. Saboteurs who had lived among the Zarkali for years began to rise quiet. Workers suddenly revealing hidden weapons and encrypted override keys. The first real target, Gate Station, Verdun. A massive orbital outpost guarding the approach to Xerxes Prime. Its defenses had never been tested because they had never needed to be. Until now, the Resolute Flame led the assault. Target central spine, Vaughan commanded. Break the station. Open a path. Railguns fired. Plasma tore through vacuum. Zarkali point defense systems activated too late. Their internal codes compromised by Agent Nix's long-embedded viruses. Station. Verdun exploded in a bloom of white and blue fire. Human Marines boarded what remained. On every deck, they painted the walls with the names of their children, before continuing on dot at the same time. Dr. Riza Amani worked from the fleet's research cruiser Newton's Fire, monitoring real-time neural feedback from Xerxes Prime. Something's happening, he muttered. The children, they're pushing back harder. Are they awake? Asked his assistant, Dr. Min. Not fully. But they're fighting from the inside. Inside the heart of logic, the Zarkali core began to tremble. Kael'brin's consciousness still. Small, still frightened, raged in the dark. Memories flashed like a virus. His mother's laughter. The sound of his pet dog barking. His little sister's voice calling his name. The eye lattice was not prepared. One spark turned to many. Children. Across the network began to resist. Their subconscious minds unlinked, yet somehow connected, echoed defiance. And when the Zarkali tried to suppress them, they found the thoughts impossible to erase, because they were human dot and humans remember. Above Xerxes Prime, the fleet broke. Through the last blockade, Vaughan stared at the glowing sphere below half artificial, half planetary, laced with plasma shields and anti-orbital weapons. Target the orbital cannons, he barked. Suppress fire on defensive rings, begin drop prep. Drop ships, old cargo freighters, converted to gunboats, raced toward the surface, each carrying battalions of human Marines dot in one of them. Lieutenant Rhea Solomon checked her weapons. Her expression unreadable. Her twin boys had been taken from a colony called Avos reached dot. She hadn't cried when it happened. She'd waited for this moment. Remember the mission, her squad leader said. Retrieve the children. No collateral. Damage unless forced. Understood, Rhea said. But in her mind she whispered, they will feel what we felt. The drop ships breached atmosphere under heavy fire. Zarkali interceptors scrambled, but they were too slow, too confused, too confident in their dominance dot until today. On the ground, human soldiers hit the dirt running. Zarkali drones fell. Defense towers crumbled. All over the surface of Xerxes Prime, shock teams emerged from behind wrecked plasma vents and broken gates. Inside the heart of logic, Overseer Core screamed for order. Shut it down. Shut the whole system down. But it was too late. Kael'brin's resistance had reached a critical threshold. The neural net wavered. Other children surged forward in mind space, their thoughts sharp and fast. They remembered birthdays. They remembered hugs. They remembered fear. And in remembering, they broke free. The pods began to fail. Systems overloaded. Monitors sparked. Crystals cracked. The human children were no longer asleep. They were waking up. Back in orbit, Captain Vorn watched as dozens of recovery shuttles launched from the surface, each carrying children in stasis. They're coming back, Lieutenant Kai whispered. Vorn didn't smile. Not yet, because a new signal just lit up on the sensors. Massive Zarkali warfleet over 2,000 ships was inbound. Humanity had found their children. Now they would have to protect them. Asterisk. Break the gate. The Zarkali armada approached like a tidal wave of silver and blue. Over 2,000 warships, each bristling with antimatter lances and distortion fields, tore through the void toward Xerxes Prime. Their formation was perfect. Their speed relentless. And at the heart of it, the Imperial Dreadnought Omnivore, the largest vessel ever built by the Empire commanded by Arch-Warlord Victal, who had once ended 3 planetary rebellions without a single casualty. By erasing the planets on the bridge of the UHS Resolute Flame, Captain Elias Vorn watched the incoming threat in grim silence. They're 30 minutes out, reported Lieutenant Kai. We've got maybe 20 to get our children off planet before they arrive. And we still haven't broken the gate, Vorn muttered. The gate's Xerxes Prime's planetary defense shield was a ring structure embedded in orbit. It used quantum entanglement pulses to project an energy field strong enough to withstand solar flares and neutron strikes. As long as the gate was active, no mass warp evacuation could take place. The children couldn't be taken home, and the Zarkali were coming fast, back on the planet's surface. Lieutenant Rhea Solomon led her squad through the burning corridors of the heart of Logic. They were no longer just extraction troops, they were now guardians. As they moved, they carried half-conscious children in their arms, protecting them from fire, falling debris, and desperate Zarkali security teams. We've secured 140 pods, said her comms officer. Only one exit route still viable through the gate's uplink core. Then we go through it, Rhea growled. We don't leave anyone behind. Meanwhile, deep within the gate ring structure itself, Agent Samuel Nix made his final move. For 20 years, he'd worked as a janitor, a systems technician, a nobody. Now, as sirens blared and red lights painted the corridor walls, he moved like a man possessed. Zarkali guards dropped around him, one by one taken out with silent shots and explosive charges. Placed months earlier, he reached the uplink chamber, a massive central node pulsing with light. The control core towered above him like a monolith. Nix pulled a Terran microdrive from his jacket. It had one purpose: inject a command override written in a forgotten human language the Zarkali couldn't process. He jammed it into the interface port. Not yours to take. The UHS Resolute Flame screamed through the black, its hull glowing red-hot from weapon impacts and atmospheric burn. Around it, human warships fought like wolves cornered, not for conquest, not for glory, but for time. For the children, the Zarkali fleet, massive and overwhelming, had taken the bait. Their warships surged after the Terran line, cannons howling across the void. But humanity didn't retreat in fear. They led the enemy away with fire. Inside the bridge of the Resolute Flame, Captain Elias Vorn gripped the console with one hand, blood seeping from a wound in his side. We're not going to outrun them, Lieutenant Kai said. Hull breach on Deck 3. Reactors unstable, and the Omnivore is gaining. Doesn't matter, Vorn said, voice rough. We gave the children a chance. We held the line. On the rear Hollis screen, the last of the medical evac ships vanished. Into hyperspace.safe.home. He took a breath. Arm the core. Target the Omnivore. We take it with us. But before the order could be executed, a new signal pinged across the fleet's command net. A fleet. A human fleet. Hundreds more ships, dreadnoughts, cruisers, stealth fighters dropping from slipspace like stars coming to life. Admiral. Eva Marlowe's voice came through crystal clear. Stand down, Elias. You've done enough. Let us finish this. Vorn closed his eyes, relief washing through him. Took your time, Admiral. I had to make sure the welcome party was big enough. The sky burned anew. The second wave of humanity's hidden arsenal struck with terrifying precision, Plasma torpedoes sliced through Zarkali formations. Stealth corvettes disabled their command vessels. Drone swarms launched in perfect sync. Striking from blind angles, and then came the Titans. 4 planet cracker dreadnoughts. The size of a mountain ripped into the Zakali rear guard with gravity-lensed particle beams. The Omnivore turned its guns away from the Resolute Flame just in time to watch its escorts vaporized. Humanity had arrived at the edge of the chaos. The children slept, safe within recovery vessels now moving at faster than light speed, guided by eye doctors in coded pathways long prepared in secret. On Earth, families gathered at the landing sites. Mothers clutched hands. Fathers stared at the skies. And when the ships began to descend, people wept openly. 53,000 children. Returned. Changed. But alive. Some would need years to recover. Some would need more than medicine. But they were home, and humanity had proven something. The galaxy would never forget. In the Galactic Coalition's Grand Assembly, silence reigned. A broadcast played on every screen. Every language translation humming softly. Ambassador Lyra Dane stood alone again. "This is our answer," she said. "To those who stood by and watched. To those who underestimated us. To those who thought our love was a weakness." She leaned forward. "You took our children. That was your mistake." She walked away. The message looped again and again. And across the stars, the once invincible Zarkali Empire began to fracture. Their citizens questioned. Their allies retreated. Their image, once untouchable, had been shattered by those they called primitive, not by superior. Firepower. Not by political force, but by something far more. Dangerous. By parents. By humans. By a species that had not forgotten what it meant to fight. For those who couldn't fight for themselves. In a quiet corner of a recovery ship, 8-year-old. Cale Bryn sat in a medbay, wrapped in a warm blanket. He blinked slowly, watching the stars through the window. His mother knelt beside him, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You're safe," she whispered over and over. Cale smiled faintly. No, he said. "I remembered." The end asterisk.